Looking back on earlier times, there's plenty of games to choose from when I was growing up. Excite Bike, Tetris, Super Mario Brothers, Klax. Klax! Never heard of this game before? That's not totally surprising. I've talked to many gamers before who have never heard of it, or never played it, but it was one of my favorites as a kid. Much like the original Metal Gear on the NES, it was my cousins who introduced me to this simple puzzle game. It's become one of my favorites from the 80s. Released in 1989, it originally was an arcade title developed by Atari. I've played the arcade version a few times, and it's fun, but the version I'll be reviewing is the NES version, released in 1990. I had way more gameplay time with that version. If you've played the game before, you'll of course know I'm talking about the Tengen version, which has some notoriety in the old NES days, mostly concerning Tetris, but for Klax, it was the only release on the NES. And yes, it's Tengen, not Tengen. You know, Gen, G-E-N, Gen. It's not a Genesis, it's a Genesis. There were other versions, mostly on the Genesis, excuse me, the Mega Drive, as well as the Game Boy Advance. Now, to me, Klax is somewhat of an interesting bird in my personal memories of growing up. It's a puzzle game, it's similar to Tetris in its design, but holy shit, does the music rock! I'm so not joking. If you ask anyone who played this game back in the day what they remember most about it, chances are they're going to say the music. This was years before I'd heard anything close to this kind of heavy-hitting, bass beat-centered music, but I'll get back to that. The game opens with the phrase, "It is the 90s and there is time for..." You have the basic options: starting a new game, options for the game, and an extras section, with some simple mini-games and other things. On to the game itself. Your basic level in Klax has single blocks tumbling towards the player, each one a different color that the player has to align in some way, shape or form, and 3 or more together. This can be done vertically, horizontally, diagonally, or even on later stages in a giant X shape, which is also used to access warps to higher levels as well. The catching device can also throw the blocks back up into the game space, in case you don't have anywhere to put them. This is advantageous, but on higher levels, this can defeat the player, because if you throw too many blocks up, you won't be able to manage them when they get to the bottom. Let's get to the music. It's fucking awesome! As I said before, the soundtrack for this game, at least for me, makes it the most memorable. The gameplay is simple, but it's the music that keeps me wanting to play. If I could listen to Giganticus Breathalyzer all day, on repeat, I'd probably have a pretty good day. Caverns of Cthulhu and Rottweiler are also my personal favorites. That's pretty much it. There isn't much else to this game besides the gameplay and the kick-ass music. If you haven't played it before, I highly recommend checking it out on the NES. Or if you're a diehard, try the arcade version in MAME. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, go check it out. Sorry for the short review length, but this is a pretty simple game, so there really isn't that much more to talk about. But, again, back in the original Nintendo days, it wasn't really about games that you could play for hours and hours and hours on end. Or at least needed to. It was just simple fun to pop in and play for 20 minutes here and there.